Well, coming to you live from Durban, this is the Africa Travel Indaba, and it is buzzing as we see Durban rising to the call to solve, to create jobs, to create massive opportunities for tourism for Africa and for South Africa. My name is Zanele Morrison, and I have an amazing panel lined up today. One of my first guests, and I want to engage with her and really set the scene for this Travel Indaba and what it's doing and what it aims to achieve. It's Winnie Mtungwa, and she's the Deputy Tourism Head. And I also have our next guest, which is Brian Mbono. He's the CEO of Oceans Umhlanga. And I also have Hamish Eskrin. He's the Durban Direct Route Development Head for this conversation. So thank you so much for joining us. It's going to be a conversation really that's critical because as we come out of COVID, we come out of the uprisings, Durban is not shy to the challenge. The offerings and the initiatives being put to place to really create a better travel destination are next to none. So I really hope that you're going to enjoy the conversations up ahead. This particular Indaba itself is creating over 250 jobs just from the tourism itself, and it's also contributing directly to our GDP. Just one event, and yet there's so much more to come out of your plans. So Winnie, I'd love to engage with you in your role as the tourism deputy head, the Durban tourism deputy head. What do you see as some of the key things that you've put in place that have become effective as we see Durban rising from COVID and rising from the uprisings?
All right, thank you, Zanele, and greetings to the viewers at home and other viewers on the digital platforms. Well, for us as Durban, from all the challenges that we've had, we believe that tourism still remains a catalyst for our economic growth. And the measures that we've put in place has been firstly to realize that we needed a new strategy and a new way of approaching things and a recovery plan at that, because if you have a setback, you have a recovery plan. So we have really engaged more collaboratively with our trade partners, because as government, we do believe that we cannot do it on our own. In tourism, you need trade partners because they are the ones that have the products, they drive the products, they actually make your tourism in terms of a destination. And also we have embarked on robust new business development, tapping into new markets that previously, pre-COVID, we have not have been aggressive. So we've developed those markets, and over and above that, what we've done is that in terms of COVID, there were new ways of, appeals to the customers or the end users, even tour operators. We, working with our small businesses, embarked on developing them to improve and adapt to the new normal, because the consumer needs and consumer desires and where they see travel has actually changed. So it was important for us as a destination to adapt. But over and above that, it's also about being relevant. So we say we are a destination on the move. We're adapting, we're agile, and we want to remain ahead of competition. And we've expanded in that regard in terms of just making sure that we are out there. And we have created robust campaigns from the time these challenges have happened in terms of brand awareness, particularly the dents that were created by the unrest, the dents that were created by, the disaster in terms of that we have no infrastructure, but we've maintained to say we are still a premium destination. We have the facilities to actually accommodate mega business events such as Indaba, because it's seamless, it's smooth. There's a lot of exhibitors that we have here. People from all over the world are coming here, and the International Convention Center still remains the premium, International Convention Center in South Africa, big capacity. So we remain confident as a destination, and we have embarked on that narrative and not backing down, because we are a resilient city.
And you're not just saying that. I mean, you have an advantage as Durban, and I don't know how to capture that advantage. You've got a robust SME sector. You've got a very strong and loyal corporate sector. What is it about Durban where it just is such an inclusive city when it comes to the participation and contribution to tourism? What is that culture?
Well, it's a culture of understanding and inculcating that we we are all in this together. It's not just a government matter, it's a partnership. It's government, community, as well as the civil society. That is why within the regions that we have in the city, we have got 9 community tourism organizations, which are a representation of different businesses within the community itself, corporate, and as well as other stakeholders. So for us, we have maintained that, and including the strategies. Like last year, we adopted our new visitor marketing strategy, which was reviving the previous one pre-COVID, and it was a consultative approach before we could say this is our strategy, and including when we're doing development and planning for any development. You know, right here in the panel, we've got a developer, and we also have our air access route development head. So it's also about those collaborations to say, where do we want to go as a city? What are the key points? Air access, how do we improve in that? How do we improve the face of the city in as far as new products that we do, which translate to tourism attractions, but firstly from catalytic projects or capital projects, whether it's a mixed-use zone or a new shopping center or new hotels because we have new inventory, or new township lounges because there's been an improvement in that. And those products, especially the ones in the township lounges, have been spearheaded by SMMEs. Like in Umlazi, during COVID, we have had a huge capital project expansion by Max's Lifestyle, who transited just from being a lounge, and they now have a conferencing facility that accommodates over 300 people. So that on its own, it talks to the inclusive and SMME development, as well as up in the north, who are also part of our prime exhibitors. We have boutique, hotels in the north at Inanda, which is right in the rural part of Durban. So that for us is an indication that the collaboration and the inclusiveness of SMMEs is, in place from a Durban point of view.
And another question that I need to go to, and we can all lean in. I thought the campaign was fantastic. I mean, this place is lit with stories. What is the tagline? What is the mission? What is the brand identity that you've put it? It looks unbelievable. It's everywhere across the city. All the buses in all the different colors, the way that you've dressed up the entire area. What is the spirit of this campaign?
All right, the theme for Indaba is actually, let's tell our story from an African point of view. So because we are part of Africa, we are a cosmopolitan city. As Durban, we are saying Durban bounce back and Durban on the rise. Durban's voice, because we want to say, we are saying our voice is out there, but we are on the rise, we are on the move, we are not static.
There's a lot of fire and passion behind that, and I wish everybody could just see how magical this place looks. So whoever did the campaign, brilliant campaign, I must say so myself in all the years in business. But when we talk about Durban on the rise, Durban on the move, now you're responsible for shaping literally the visual view of that. So when we come into Durban, every year we're expecting to see it look different. How are you getting that right?
So thank you, Zanet. It's 3 things. It's all about benchmarking, matching and exceeding and growing what we have at our disposal. And that can only happen on the backbone of 2 things: a very healthy relationship with your respective municipality, as well as, in particular, the tourism arm of that, because there's nothing that sells like people visiting your destination. There's an isiZulu saying that says, "Umuzi ongahanjelwa akusiwo umuzi ofudumele loyo."
A house that's not visited is not a warm house.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we, by virtue of a relationship with eThekwini municipality, and in particular Durban Tourism, is the relationship we have with them is that we have built an iconic structure, a gigantic structure, if I may, and that is Oceans Umhlanga. From concept, now we see it. Through the years, people were saying it's just going to be a white elephant in the city of Durban. I mean, it's the last 7 hectares of land in prime Durban. I mean, we're situated on the third most expensive street in the whole entire country. It is a mixed-use development, which is the new types of development that is being built around the world. We have a world-class international hotel that's Radisson Blu, who've put their confidence in not just us as developers, but in the city of Durban to say, you know what, Durban tourism, thumbs up. We're gonna align ourselves with, as Winnie said, the new, if I can say, growth and development strategy of tourism for Durban, as she's already alluded to, that it's Durban on the rise, Durban, it's one voice. And that is, it's no longer, we're not just about rickshaws and the oceans, because you'll have viewers who lean a little bit on, you know, on the pessimistic side and say, oh, but what about your beaches? And listen, every house has its challenges, but it's the entire house that gets behind its leaders and says, you know what, we're not going anywhere. We've invested 4.3 billion rand in the city of Durban. That amounts to 136 million rand of taxes and rates for the city of Durban to do what? To enable to fulfill its mandate in terms of infrastructure, road networks, the aerotropolis that Hamish on my right is responsible for. That is what Durban is. We are the most resilient city on the entire continent of Africa, and that is why we've even brought international brands into our oceans more.
We're going to touch on that a little bit later, because that's a conversation on its own, right? Okay. Because there's something about Durban that's inviting, but at the same time accessible. It never feels like I should not be in Durban. It feels like I belong when I'm in Durban.
Absolutely.
But also for all layers of society. But let's get back and have that conversation, slightly different conversation. And everyone needs to know that you're the CEO of Oceans Umhlanga.
Oh, well, I'm the exec with no title. I just get the job done.
Well, you know what, it's a great job. You're responsible for a big thing. So we're going to come back and have that. Hamish, you also hold, you work more with the route development into Durban. Really, I think one of the biggest challenges we had out of COVID was access, right? It was the flights, it was maintaining our airlines. I cannot believe how we took for granted the ease of travel up until we didn't have it as easy anymore. What's the progress? Are we going to see ourselves getting back to the way travel was, and even better and hopefully cheaper?
No, thanks so much, Zanele. And so I think the first comment to make is you don't achieve that comeback and you don't achieve the growth in air services and connectivity and accessibility unless you do it as a partnership. And I think that's something that drives us very strongly as not only as a city, but as a province as well. And maybe to take you back before I answer your question, because I'll give you the status of where things are at the moment recovering. I mean, where we started off and the principle we apply, I come from Durban Trade Port, so we obviously are a cargo operator. It must be important to remember that our starting point is that every aircraft that lands, be it a domestic or be it an international aircraft, essentially brings jobs. It brings different levels of activity. It brings business travelers, it brings tourists, it brings cargo. So your connectivity is massively important, particularly where that connectivity is linking you to your core tourism markets, your core trade markets, and you're growing that network globally. Because of a city of 4 million, you've got to have that growing, expanding level of accessibility. So quite a long time back, we set up a route development committee, which was to bring in all of the tourism agencies, the trade and investment agencies, the private sector for quite a long time prior to COVID, to say, guys, we need to sit around and market this city, market this province together, because that's what the airlines look for. To start a new route is an extremely expensive undertaking, and it'll touch on your primary question. Aircraft they're huge consumers of fuel, of salaries, of wages, of operating costs. So you've got to fill that aircraft. You've got to make sure the destination is attractive and that the users on both ends are able to sustain that route. If you then lose that route, it's very hard to get it back. So we've put in a lot of effort up till 2019, and 2019 was our best year ever. So getting to your question, it was a fantastic year. King Shaka was just about to did hit its highest ever numbers for the year. We had just for a year had started British Airways, which we worked very closely with all our partners on, direct London route, all of our partners, all of our airlines were really flourishing. And literally that got switched off in one night with COVID. And that wasn't just us, it was around the world. So I remember during that time planning and saying, well, what is this recovery going to look like? What's going to change in the industry? We didn't know about revenge travel back then. So where we now is at King Shark International Airport, we had projected that probably about 24, 25, we were going to get maybe back to the 2019 numbers. King Shark at the moment is at 73% of the pre-COVID numbers. We've had 3 airlines launch. We've seen a lot of regional connectivity start. So we've launched Harare a year ago. That's doing very, very well. We launched Lusaka about a month ago, and then Eswatini Air last Friday. So the regional connectivity is coming back. All of our major airline partners, bar our London route, have come back, are back almost to their normal scheduling, and now we're trying to work to expand that. So I think it's a positive story, but it's going to be hard work. But this is the same anywhere in the world. Airlines have taken a really hard knock. They financially have had to go through a very tough time. So we do understand that equally we need to extend that hand of partnership to them as well.
So one of the things that I'm starting to buy into, which initially was really tough for me, was this, and you're saying it now as if it's actually been in practice, the collaboration and the commitment between the various stakeholders. So to see you speak about it all the time, it means it's actually working. Government is working with private sector, with various stakeholders. And what was the magic? What was the thing that made it make sense to collaborate? Because we say it, but it's tough. Government has got certain ways, bureaucracies, there's regulation, there's so much to consider. What would you think was the formula for Durban to work?
Zanet, if I may, the formula was quite simple. It's shared vision. It's shared vision of, this is Durban. Durban is our home. We've been through July looting, the floods. Yes, and I say this with great pride and dignity that Durban is the most resilient city in the world because, number one, its political leadership is intact, although some of your viewers might say otherwise, but I say again, there is no house that does not have its challenges. We face our challenges head on. Our chairman, Mr. Vivian Reddy, is probably the icon of business in Durban, who's ploughed in billions of rands into the city and cities going nowhere else, because if the Vivian Reddys and the Hamish Iskins don't come together and say, Durban, create an enabling environment for us to invest in. We've brought international brands into Durban, and that is because of the lady sitting on my far right is surrounded by very strong leadership that has tied its belt and said, look, if we don't make it work, nobody is. Last week, we took Durban to the world, and we told Durban we're the most resilient city in the entire world. Our heritage.
Where did you take it to? Which part of the world?
Well, we took Durban to the world in the sense that the Arabian travel market, which is the mecca of tourism, there was a political leader there who's the chairman of ECOD, the deputy head of tourism, because tourism is the backbone of any city's infrastructure in terms of investment. I mean, Hamish on my right, they've created an environment where airplanes can now come back into Durban. And when those travelers come back into Durban, the first thing they ask is, where do we stay? We've created that because of the relationship we have and the shared vision in saying, by 2030, Durban is going to be the most livable city in the entire continent. Go back another 9 or 10 years was the vision that it's, guys, in 2012 or 2013, help me here, Winile, we are taking Durban to the world. And that has been the mission from day one. From Hamish's team at Durban Trade Port to ensure that the entire team, from the security guard, you have to ensure everybody sings from the same tune. And just a year ago, this where we're sitting now is no different than it is now. It speaks of one thing: Durban is consistent. When they get behind their political leaders, when business stands up and says, hey, yes, we've had looting, yes, we've had floods, But that has not stopped us. It has not stopped Oceans Umhlanga in continuing to plow more money, because when we create jobs, when we create investment, it tells a story to the rest of the world. It's not about Brian Mpono or Vivian Reddy or Oceans Umhlanga or Hamish and Dubai Trade Board or Winnie and Durban Tourism. No, it's about Durban. Everything you see around here is blue and white, which speaks to that is who we are. We are Durban, and Durban is on the rise. That's the power of our collaboration.
So there's a vision behind the collaboration. Let's change gears, Winnie. I want to go back to the challenges and how you've overcome and how you've designed and managed to push through, because now you're needing to pull together the municipalities. You're needing to pull together all the various stakeholders from a government point of view. How have you managed to do that, and have you seen the fruits of your efforts in the tenure that you've been the tourism deputy head?
All right. The challenges have been there. They've been like seriously aggressive challenges, especially during the COVID. But it's called for great innovation, because in COVID, you would remember, we couldn't do anything. Everything was locked down. But for us, we had to really put our innovative caps very fast to still maintain the brand and keep Durban top of mind. So we had innovative ways in terms of digital and virtual, and really that got the ongoing engagement with the consumers, and as well as our different stakeholders, like the creative industry suffered and different lounges suffered, but it's because we could see that this is just a temporary measure. Yes, it's a big challenge, global challenge, but it too was going to pass, and it eventually passed, such that by the time it passed, the messaging that we had been driving, it yielded results, because there was such an influx of visitors that then came back to Durban. And you will remember, mega events couldn't happen, but we became innovative in terms of how we were doing those events, just stimulating the appetite and the desire for visitors to continue to come to Durban. And immediately when the regulations were relaxed, there was continuous influx. And again, when we had the challenges of a disaster, the communication to our stakeholders became consistent in terms of updating them and interventions. For example, we would not have water because infrastructure was actually damaged, but municipality just swiftly intervened to make sure that our tourism products still had water, the electricity was up to standard, everything was seamless, such that the booking still continued to happen. There was no point where you'd find that there's a hotel that is shut down because there's no water. That is how responsive we were against the challenges that we were prevailing, we were going through at that point in time. So even with the infrastructure in terms of road, obviously it was a serious damage, and you cannot just repair infrastructure overnight, but the teams were there on site, swift responses into those, so that the accessibility still comes into functionality to be able to go to those routes or those attractions that visitors needed to go through where the infrastructure may have been damaged. But more than anything, it was the robust communication, robust collaboration, and we are very proud that even our trade partners, they came on board in terms of contributing towards the solutions, because there were times whereby the municipality was just too stretched and budgets had to be readjusted, but trade came into play in terms of putting in some financial resources so that we could rebuild our Durban.
Thank you so much, Winnie. Hamish, here's a question for you. In terms of the routing of traffic into Durban, where are you looking at growing the remaining 30%? The continent has become such an interesting travel arena, and also they are your biggest competitors. Their airports are coming up. They're pushing hard for tourism, for tourism and for events to come to them. What's your perspective on where the numbers are going to come from? Is the rest of the continent something that attracts you to position Durban for?
Very much so, for a number of reasons. If I look at the continent in particular, as I mentioned earlier, our three newest routes have all been, Harare, Lusaka, and then most recently King Mswati in Eswatini. and looking around and walking around here and looking at the offerings, I've been quite taken by the huge surge in what we'd probably call the safari offerings across the continent. And I think the hunger for travel, and I think COVID has probably for an international market really brought that opportunity alive. I think so to answer your question, we've got a number of different things we're looking at, and there's a scenario emerging. You've got the Africa Free Trade Agreement. Okay, so we are expecting just ourselves as Durban Tradeport and working with the industry and the manufacturing industry, we are expecting to see a strong uptick in just general trade and the establishment of quite strong trade routes. Remember, air services don't only carry people, they also carry cargo. They're a very important facilitator of trade, both business people and cargo physically itself. So there's no question in my mind that the integration and the connectivity into the sub-region and then ultimately into the broader east and west of Africa is inevitable and is what we are heading towards. But I think when you look at the numbers, and the tourism minister mentioned it, some of the early recovery numbers of tourists coming in have been from our neighboring countries. And countries in the sub-region. And it's very interesting and very exciting. I'm sure Brian might be seeing similar things in his, and so we need to share this pipe. So my view on it is, the more we can develop that connectivity. So let's say somebody flying in, an international visitor, is generally going to fly in through a major airport hub, a King Shaka, an ORT, a Cape Town. But once they're here, and as they get to hopefully return more and more to the destination, they're going to want to explore and go out into the countries around us that also have amazing offerings. And that kind of connectivity where you can come to Southern Africa, almost as if you were traveling to another destination and you move between multiple countries and cities, that's really the environment we need to be creating in Southern Africa. And I think we're well on that journey. So it's about selling our product and making our product strong, which I think the KZN product, not just the Durban product, the KZN product is a strong product. It's well known. Some of the things aren't going to change. We've been through a rough time, as Brian is saying, but we've got those mountains. Those mountains don't change. They've been there for millions of years. We've got Isimangaliso. We've got all of our game reserves. We've got so much, all of the stuff. I won't list it all. And then what we've got in Durban. So that's hugely interesting and attractive to travelers from Zimbabwe, from Zambia, from Angola. And I think that's where we really need to grow. And then the international tourists coming here need to go and experience those countries. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that when we get back. I want us to take a quick short break. We're going to talk about, it's not just about Durban. It's about Durban and others. So what is the impact of the other routes and how are we enabling the total ecosystem? So let's get back and talk about that. Let's take a quick short break. I'll be back with you shortly. Welcome back. This is the Africa Travel Indaba coming to you from Durban. We're going on to a conversation that takes us to travel by the seas, and I'm joined by Ross Falk, who's the MD of MSC Cruises. Ross, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the privilege of being here.
You've joined a very, very interesting conversation, but you're going to just add on to it because when we think of cruises really and their ability to create interconnectivity into various countries and the important role it plays in Durban, give us a view of some of the numbers of the kinds of the amount of trips, the amount of visitors, the amount of revenue that comes into Durban because of MSC Cruises.
The last season up to the end of April, we would have had 108,000 passengers that we would have carried, and the anticipation with the new ship that we're bringing out to South Africa in 2023, 2024 is to up that number to in excess of 110,000 passengers. I think economically the downstream impact is obviously incredible incredible because you're bringing all those people through the central point of Durban Harbour. And we do sort of between 36 and 40 trips a year out of Durban up to the Mozambican Channel and back again through to Durban. It's certainly our major centre of economic hub from MSC's perspective, and a major conduit for us for getting guests through to our Mozambican islands. And it makes a lot of sense for us to invest in Durban, as we've done in terms of the 300 million rand terminal that we've put on the promenade there. So it makes a lot of sense for us to develop and build. And that's why we're also investing another 30 million this year in the Durban cruise terminal. And one of our ethos has always been to try and ensure that we procure locally as well for this. So 70% of the terminal that we did build, was procured from South Africa. We had local architects, local engineers, local construction. The only thing that we had to source was the steel and the fabrication, which couldn't be done in South Africa, but all the rest was done with South Africa in mind.
So you're already taking away a lot of my questions because the focus is already on procuring locally. You're also quite a great source of not just travel as well, but also job creation. How much of that is happening in Durban, and also what's some of the skills development that come with that?
Yeah, so I mean, we obviously want to try and target one of the biggest challenges we face in South Africa, which is unemployment. And we've opened up the Shore Shores Ocean Academy in 2019. Obviously, it got hit by COVID, and there has been some challenges and bottlenecks taking place over the last couple of years. But over the first 3 months of this year, we've been really trying to push as many people through. In 2022, we employed 784 South Africans on board our vessels, and this year we're targeting in excess of 1,000. As I said, the first couple of months has seen a bit of a bottleneck. We've changed systems. We're moving towards a more streamlined system, which has meant that there is a sort of backlog of what we're producing. But our target at the end of this year is over 1,000 South Africans. Maybe someone's not quite ready from a seafarer's perspective, but we've built a number of facilities at our Durban office. Sorry, it's disappeared. So there's a galley, there's a cabin, there's a bar service that looks and replicates what's on board the vessel, and the guys get trained up on that, and then they go on board the ship, so they don't see it for the first time when they arrive on the ship. They see it actually beforehand, and that allows them opportunity to feel more at home and progress through that. So there is that element of skills development, and we do it through requirements of previously disadvantaged communities. We have a lot of crew from the Eastern Cape, the Durban area and the surrounding areas, and obviously we're still recruiting quite heavily because I would like to see more than 1,000 South Africans on board our ships this year and beyond. I'd like to get it up to 2,000. I think it would be a great target for us.
Thank you so much. I think one more question that I want to throw at you, and that is on partnership. MSC is quite a contained business. How does it partner, and what is its strategy for partnering with Durban-based businesses? Because there are tons of thriving Black and diverse businesses in Durban.
I think MSC is a wonderful organization in terms of the fact that its family values mean that we look at things a little differently in terms of partnerships. I think one of the challenges that I foresee for SMEs is the volume that they need to provide. So just as a quick aside, you could be producing anywhere or need to produce anywhere between 5,000 and 20,000 lettuces a week in order to feed everyone on board the ship. So you've got to have that commitment from a procurement perspective to make sure you can supply that. And I think that's one of the challenges that we face certainly in dealing with SMEs, is that there's no guarantee to the volume of what's required. So I think, there was some conversations that we were having around trying to form cooperatives to be able to pool resources together and see how we could get that done. It's in its infancy, but certainly we are acutely aware of the need to have a look at the SME value chain to ensure that there is some kind of participation to grow those SMEs into bigger companies, and also to ensure that there's employment at that grassroots level as well. But those are things we're looking at a long-term strategy in terms of trying to identify those areas. But some of the quick wins are we obviously try and procure as much as we can from a local perspective, South Africa, and then obviously Durban as the next port.
Thank you so much. I think we don't want to stay too long on that conversation. There's another one. You're tired as well. Thank you. Sorry, Ron. There's another conversation that I wanted to have, and that is on the, we've done air, we've done ship. There's also the traveler that drives into Durban, or that's a tourist from a local perspective, right? And those are great numbers that you have. How do you nurture those travelers? Because we hopefully need to graduate them to be the ones that fly out of the country or, go on a cruise. But they're critical and they are the pipeline. What are you doing, Winile, for those sectors?
All right. I think the good thing or the advantage of Durban in terms of the positioning from an East Coast location is that we air, land, and sea. So from a land or road point of view, the domestic market, just starting within the South African context, it's about, firstly, it's affordable and people want to spend less from travel. If it's a family of 5, it's cost effective to be on a road trip and just come to the destination and spend more money on the attractions and the experience than actually, the flights, particularly because if they're a big group. And if they're a big group, it's an advantage because it means more accommodation and also more spend in the different attractions. So we actually nurture those in terms of packages, in terms of incentives. Thank you. In terms of incentives that we offer them. And also, it's just the experience of the road tripping that, when you take a road trip, you just stop and enjoy the scenery. Like when you're coming from the west, you start experiencing, KwaZulu-Natal coming in and the Midlands and all those area sceneries, but into Durban from Catteridge, and then you start, getting the feel of Durban before you get to your destination. For example, if you're saying you're coming to Umhlanga. But another thing is that with the connectivity we of the road, it's exciting for us that it's not only the national or South African context, even surrounding, neighboring countries. Like they are mostly landlocked countries. Eswatini, the Zambias, the Botswanas. It's just a driving distance into the destination and connecting that as well with, the cruise, because what happens in the cruise thing to Maputo or Portuguese islands or wherever, they come here and spend time in Durban before they hop onto this experience of going to the Portuguese island or Maputo. And that is an advantage. So that's also that connectivity, not just isolation from a road a trip to say we are coming to Durban, but also in terms of the cruise. But over and above that, it's about the other vessels that come from outside of the city, like the Queen Marys that are coming, the whole cruise vessels that come and dock. The people there, they would then hop off and experience the destination and also have their own, drive within the destination and even go outside of Durban to Smangaliso, to the game drive and, the whole safari drive. So for us, it's nurturing the domestic and also the boundary or the neighboring countries which are landlocked wanting to experience the coastal, and it's much more of a cost-effective experience.
When you actually say it and you say the words, I can picture it. So if somebody hasn't done it, they have got to do it, because the way the landscape changes and the way you're describing it, it's absolutely spot on. So thank you so much for that contribution. Hamish, do you want to lean in further into the conversation around the connectivity part? Because what I learned recently is that it is so critical to understand how to help people to connect, because you need the reason for the boat or the airline to leave with people again, after they've done various connectivity routes. How are you going to manage to do the things that are not necessarily in your control?
Yeah. No,
please go for it. Go for it.
Let's
grab the mic.
Yeah. No, Zanella, I think you've hit exactly on the thing. Is in order for any form of transport to work, you've got to have a user needing to get somewhere and somebody to get to your and there's got to be a reason for that travel. And I think Winile, Brian, Ross have been talking about the reasons, all of those good things. So when you talk to an airline, so let's look at that connectivity. There's quite a lot of stuff going on, and I'll maybe start from something that's newer. The provincial government has started to refurbish a lot of the regional airports in KZN, which isn't probably that well known at the moment, Mkuze, Margate and others, trying to create a network of connectivity of smaller airports linking into King Shaka and creating a connectivity at a provincial level. So that is going on. And I've spoken about how we are trying to get the regional and working on the regional connectivity. The thing with connectivity always is you've got to find your core market. So Winile and the team from KZN Tourism and others, they guide us as a committee in terms of where are those target markets. Is it Germany? Is it the UK? What's happening in the Far East? What's the trends happening from the US? What's the trends happening from China and those sorts of things? Because that gives us then the ability to run those numbers and go and talk to the airlines and give them a business case. Because any airline, any connectivity has got to be based on a business case that serves the interests of both parties. The airline must know that it's going to get consistent traffic, that it's going to be able to grow that traffic, and that it's going to be able to sustain the route. That's obvious because it is a big operation. So that level of connectivity has to be well thought through and well planned. And then you've got to serve those key markets that are your core markets, and it's all about partnerships. It's about those airlines seeing what's available, what's on the ground, understanding the product. And myself and Brian were talking about it just before we started, of some of the people he brought out who had no idea about Durban. They had never, couldn't, I think he said they asked him what's the closest city to Durban. So there's a lot of engagement out there that we've really got to, keep getting that message. And I think that's been the consistent, kind of theme of today is, in Durban, we never give up. In KZN, we never give up. We get up again, we get out there. So I'm not really answering your connectivity question, but I'm trying to, in that, your connectivity is very dependent on your destination and how your destination offers that extra edge that gives the airlines the confidence to bring that connectivity to you. So it's very much a partnership approach.
Yeah, and I want to perhaps throw this question to Ross, but thank you so much. One of the things that we haven't spoken a lot to is the fact that it's the warmest place to be. We take for granted the importance of just going to a warm place, right? And Durban is always warm. Even in winter, Durban is warm. Is that a value proposition that people are still looking for when they travel?
I think weather plays an important part in any decision that's made. But I think warm for me means more about the people than the weather. And I've traveled a lot in the world, and I've got a couple of people that have come out over the last couple of weeks because we've just onshored a call center for our US market with 60 people in Johannesburg that are all South African service in the US, and we're going to grow it to hopefully 260 people by the end of next year. But they've traveled, and I've encouraged them to experience South Africa in terms of wanting to see what we have to offer. And every single one of them's had one comment to say that South Africa's an incredible warm country. And I think Durban, because of its climate and being warm, people aren't depressed. They love being here. They love the sea. They love the ocean. They love everything about being in this wonderful place. And I think that's what creates also the warmth for me in terms of drawing people into the city and to the communities, is that there's such warmth amongst the sort of constituents of KZN, which makes it even better in terms of the value proposition for us from a cruise. That's why we base it out of here, is that we've got great weather and great people.
Much. We take the compliment for the second, and we don't take the first, but we're grateful to have it. And one more thing about Durban that's very surprising. I travel a lot, but when I travel to Durban, I see the most stylish people coming into Durban. What is this capital fashion sense that I'm picking up, but I have not seen it anywhere? I haven't seen it written anywhere. Is it also the next fashion place to be?
Well, it's not the next fashion place.
It's not the next fashion place.
It is. And for the simple reason, because spearheaded by our chairman and founder of Oceans Umhlanga, it took us 2.5 years to bring international fashion brands to the seashores of Durban. For the longest time, when you think fashion, you'd either go to Cape Town or Johannesburg. But here's an interesting fact for your viewers. Almost just under half of all the sales in Diamond Walk in Sandton City, the richest square mile in Africa, I beg to differ because we have Durban, is that all those sales are Durbanites. Now here's the interesting thing, leaning back to connectivity and what Ross has at just about 5 Ks down from it, is that when you provide infrastructure, there's a saying that I always use, that if you want it to rain, plant trees. just 13 to 20 kilometers west of where we are. It's always in the mornings, it's always misty, and there's always that light rain that just drifts over Hillcrest, the Midlands. And why? It's rich in trees and vegetation. So we've literally brought Dubai to Durban because Durbanites have to travel out of KZN to go and experience visitor shopping experience at an international level. So because of the collaboration between ourselves, Durban Tourism, and as well as municipality, and albeit the province, because of that strong relationship, we were able to align ourselves with the vision of taking Durban to the world. By doing what? By creating a Dubai in Durban. Because what's going to happen now, in the next 2 months, you're going to have people coming for the July handicap. Instead of staying from the Friday until Sunday, they're going to be visitor experience, connectivity, either drive and understand we service 3 provinces. That's Eastern Cape, Free State, and Mpumalanga. Now there's an increased need to come and see Durban because why? There's a new product offering. So, and those, I think it is about 2 or 3 months ago, everyone flocked to Durban 4 to come and hop on Ross's, big and luxurious ship to go up to the Portuguese islands in Maputo. But they came an extra 2 or 3 days earlier for the visitor experience. So it's not just about sleeping in the Radisson Blue Hotel, but they sleep there, and because they're going on the MSC, they go down to the 2nd floor and they walk into the most iconic mall in the entire continent of Africa, which is Platinum Walk, to buy what they'd normally fly to Joburg and buy, but because there's an offering that offers that international experience for some people who in their entire lifetime have only been as far as Johannesburg or the Midlands. But now that experience is being brought to the seashores of Durban. And what does it do? Because you've got Turkish Airlines, Emirates, and Qatar, who are predominantly Muslim companies who now will drive traffic into Durban because 70% of Radisson Blue is Sharia compliant. So there's a need, and the conference facilities allow that Muslim community to come and experience Durban at a different level. So it's not just about fashion. We know fashion. Half of Diamond Walk sales comes from Durban. So we create.
And you wear it.
Wow.
Not just shopping, but you're wearing it on your way to Durban.
Absolutely. You're wearing it on your way to Durban, and this need of, if you want good fashion, if you want to experience international fashion, you have to go to Joburg, Cape Town. No, that is not true.
It's now in Durban.
It is not. Dubai is now in Durban.
Dubai is now in Durban.
Yes.
Right. Let's talk numbers. Just when I looked at the numbers for this conference, just how it boosted, for example, the hotel and how much revenue went to the hotels. Just the conference, 250 jobs, just the conference. If you look at the collective efforts that you are putting in, what do you believe is the contribution that's possible to South Africa's GDP?
Thank you, Zanele. I think in terms of contextualizing the numbers, there's numbers that have actually been triggered, what we're experiencing during the period of the Indaba. But there's a context of what Indaba has induced for futuristic numbers that are still going to come to Durban. So as we speak, in terms of the impact, we are sitting, which is an increase from last year, we are sitting at an occupancy rate in as far as our accommodation, hotels and non-hotels in terms of the BNPs. We're sitting at, 85, 90%. And in terms of, the GDP, we're sitting at 103, million rands, at which with all the production in the value chain of tourism that is happening, that is where we're actually sitting at. And the spend as well is actually induced in, because as they are coming here, they are shopping, they are creating jobs, they're spending on different things, and also the spend in as far as the services and goods and the job creation, because as we are here, there's infrastructure, there's the stands that have been built, people are providing food, people are providing services, technical. So the jobs that have been created is actually a baseline of 250, but it's much, much more, because the jobs are just within Indaba, but outside of Indaba, within restaurants, within the shuttle services, within the shopping that they continue to do, because of the new volumes that are coming during this period, there's extra stuff that different companies in the value chain are bringing in to take care of the new volumes that are triggered by Indaba. So over and above that, talking about inducement, after Indaba, from the meetings that are happening between buyers and exhibitors, there is new visits that are going to be coming into Durban as a result of the destination promotion and the exposure. Yes, we are going to the July, but those are peak, periods. But during the other period of leisure, the selling of the destination, there is going to be that awareness of the destination, and people will be coming into the destination as a result of the buyers that would have packaged the destination and bring people to the destination. So the buyers are not only having the meetings, but they are also being hosted to different attractions by Durban Tourism to actually feel the experience, to actually, get it at first hand, such that when they tell the consumers or they sell the packages, they know exactly what they are talking about, because tourism is all about experience. It's not just about theory and about just, a narrative. So for us, that is what the continued trigger of numbers is going to be futuristically. But I'd also like to touch on the element of the numbers that are induced from the warmest place to be contextualizing Durban. Durban is cosmopolitan. It's home away from home. You come here, you feel at home, but at the same time, you feel on a holiday. Right now, post-COVID, there's an element of, pleasure in terms of business and leisure. So people, they work away from their traditional places and work during holidays. And the good thing is that Durban is for everybody. There's the entry-level visitor, there's the middle class, and then there's the premium class. Right now, we have just gotten into the premium brand, which O'Brien has spoken about. So there is really no excuse or of anybody who's of a high caliber to say, no, I'm not coming to Durban, because we are progressive like that. We understand the market, and working in collaboration with trade, we have made sure our partners that with the investment they've put in, now the premium offering of shopping, of experience, of fine dining in many other products is actually there. Same thing with the middle class, because people would say the travel is expensive, but we say no, Durban is affordable. There's a value proposition for everybody. So whatever you need, you actually get it in Durban.
Winnie, thank you so much. I think you've really, for me, given me a better understanding of just the impacts of travel and tourism. I mean, it is an incredible value chain, right down to the food, to the farmers around the area. And well spoken as well on Durban. I think you really have something to offer for absolutely everybody. If we could close off quickly with just what is the one thing that you would say is for you the light of Durban or the warmth of Durban, what would it be? So when you talk about Durban, just that one thing, and then we're going to wrap up this conversation.
I think I mentioned it earlier. It's the people, which complements the beautiful landscape. So I think that's one of the things that needs to happen.
Thank you so much. And that's Ross from MSC Cruises.
Well, for me, is that Durban is South Africa's playground. Anything, if you want to relax, people work so hard. People are going through a lot of things. And if you want to distress, Durban is the place to be. And you will just be recharged, rejuvenated, and you get back to your business. So come to Durban, and you will be a changed person and be more productive in your normal space.
Stunning. Winnie Mtungwa, Deputy Head for Tourism.
Zanetta, I think Ross stole my one, but I'll repeat it again. The people are the most amazing thing, and I'm a Durbanite, 55 years, giving away my age. And that is the lovely and strong and beautiful thing about the city. But I think maybe let me add something more, is the city is also about infrastructure, and it's about the services it provides to the nation. Our port, our roads, our rail, and everything else. And that's going through a rebirth. We've got, King Shark has been around 13 years now, so that we've got a lot in place. We've got Brian's developments in place. So there's a lot in place. It's now really about taking that forward and taking, importantly, everyone along with us along the way.
Leaving no one behind. Hamish Eskrin, Direct Route Development. Good luck.
Given the context of our discussions, Zanele, I'm going to lean towards the business side, and that is, number one, Durban is the most resilient city in the entire continent of Africa. Number two, it's the investor confidence. The two gentlemen that are my co-panelists, the 300 million investment that MSC has made, as Ross has told us, the increased ability to receive additional air routes into the city of Durban, where Hamish is based at Durban Trade Port. But I cannot labor on the point more. It's the investor confidence created by an enabling environment by the city of Durban, and using Durban tourism as a key value proposition to say, we are Durban, our infrastructure is forward-thinking, it's progressive. So whomever you are out there in the world, if you're wanting to change your investment proposition to a more cosmopolitan, tropical, come to the city of Durban. 200 million rands has been invested by the international giants of the fashion world into Durban. It says something not about Brian Mbona as the CEO or Vivian Reddy as the chairman and founder, but if you just look around where we're sitting now, it's all these people who are playing various roles at various levels to tell the Durban story. As I said before, it's from the security guard at the gate, the cleaner, the people who sit behind the cameras and project Durban as the most livable city, yes, by 2030, but it's a vision that we are driving towards. And as I said, on the job side, we talk about 250 jobs here at Indaba, but that's 250 households, just because of Indaba, will not go to bed hungry. And the residual impact of those who've been exposed to what Winnie was saying, to the tourism industry, and wanting to do more, because you get an amazing feeling when you build something, when you tell a story, when you create air routes, when you build a luxurious ship that takes people across the coastline of Durban. It's an amazing feeling when you see it into action, and it's a collective effort. Enabling environment and investor confidence. Thank you, Zanele.
Thank you so much. Thank you to each and every one of you. What a great story, and what a great ability to really unpack the value of tourism. And I want to thank you so much for joining us for this time. You know, when we look at the challenges we face across the continent, and we look at the challenges we face in South Africa, we're not betting on the past, we're betting on the future. We're also betting on the people that are driving their industries with passion. So I appreciate that you took the time to really listen to Durban's story, and for yourself as well, to be a traveler of sustainable vision, where you go to make an impact and to make a difference in every city that you go to.